You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
All right, Miami! Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. Hey, when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Sunday, June 9th. I am your host, Mike Oliva, flying solo today. We got a few topics here to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins. A little potpourri of topics that have been sort of sitting on the back burner for me that I sort of want to address and sort of get through here as we're in that part of the offseason. We're after the mandatory OTAs and the mini camps and all that stuff. We have like a 5 or 6 week period until training camp begins. There's not going to be a ton of news unless Tua gets his extension, which he will, at some point in the next 5 or 6 weeks, most likely, or if Miami makes a signing. But even if they do make a signing, it's not going to be one that sort of moves the needle here and be any big name. So we're going to hit a few little smaller topics here on today's show and talk through them. But before we get to any of that, as always, a big shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page, and wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, Podchaser, Audible, or one of the other 100 platforms we're on, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss an episode here of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. We got a few interviews this week. I think Tom's going to do one. Marissa might have a couple. Myself and Ian, we're going to be back maybe with a mailbag show. So it's going to be a full week here at DolphinsTalk.com. You won't want to miss a new episode when it drops. So hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Go down there right now and smash that like button. It is greatly appreciated. And today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, and all the professional college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey or gift or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your own home. And yes, they ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Okay, one topic that's been I've been wanting to talk about here for the past few weeks, but I just haven't had time to get around to yet, is you look at this Miami Dolphins team heading into 2024. We know the strengths, we know the weaknesses, we know on offense they've improved the running back depth. We've seen they've improved the tight end room overall with Jonnu Smith coming in, and they also signed the kid from Kansas City, Fortson. They've improved the wide receiver depth with Odell Beckham coming in. Offensive line, that's a whole different debate for a whole different day. Everyone's got their opinions on that. We kind of know where we all stand. But one area that's kind of been ignored is the quarterback depth. I'm not talking Tua. This has nothing to do with Tua. But who's behind Tua? Because Miami's quarterback depth kind of stinks. Mike White is terrible. Skylar Thompson has a pretty low ceiling, and I think he's kind of hit it already. We kind of know who Skylar Thompson is and who he won't be. Skylar makes no real money, so there's no reason to move on for him, and he's fine enough for a number 3 quarterback, so I don't see any reason to do anything with Skylar Thompson. But you, as a Miami Dolphin fan listening, do you have any confidence in Mike White if Tua has to miss a week, a month, or more. I know in the big picture, if Tua goes down, Miami is kind of screwed. Like if he's got to miss like a month or so, their season's screwed. They're not going to survive it. I get it. But you got to try, right? I mean, you got to try. And Mike White just really isn't any good. He has 8 career touchdowns, 13 career interceptions. In games Mike White has started, he is 2-5. Last year in Miami, he only had 6 pass attempts, and out of 6 pass attempts, he threw a pick 6 versus the Panthers. He's only played in 14 games ever. 7 of them he was the starter, but he's only played in 14 games ever. That's not a big sample size. He's just not very good. And this is a Miami Dolphins team that has eyes on, obviously the Super Bowl, yes, but, not only to make the playoffs, but at least win one playoff game and get that monkey off our back. If not, go further than that in a perfect world. And I know that's going to be all on the back of Tua Tagovailoa, but, do you want your season to go down the drain if Tua goes down? Look at the Cleveland Browns last year. That was a very special team they had, and they went through a few quarterbacks. I mean, they were able to survive an injury to the starting quarterback and even the backup quarterback and the quarterback. They just kept rolling through quarterbacks because the team was just ready to win. And that's kind of where Miami is right now. The team has enough talent. It has enough superstars where it's ready to win. So if Tua goes down, do you want to just punt on the season? I mean, as a fan, no fan ever wants to punt on the season. We have to be realistic in that if he goes down, your chances of winning the AFC East or winning the Super Bowl probably goes out the windows. But, could you make the playoffs? Hell, they put 7 teams now in the AFC, in the playoffs in the AFC. Making the playoffs shouldn't be shot dead because he were to go down. And you want to have a puncher's chance. And I don't know if Mike White gives you that chance. Now, again, there's not many guys out there on the open market who would, but there's one name who I think would. And let's talk about this here real quick. Again, I know this is unlikely, and I know it's a pipe dream, but I think it's something that should at least be considered. And we're just having a conversation here, folks. That's all we're doing. We're having a conversation on the podcast. So don't get worked up about this stuff. But if Miami were to cut Mike White, they would only eat $1.7 million in dead cap, but they would get $3.5 million in salary cap savings. So they would open up $3.5 million of salary cap space. Granted, you have to sign a new number 2 quarterback. And so you get that 3.5 of savings, but you also have to factor in the 1.7 of dead money. We also know that the Dolphins picked up $18.5 million worth of cap space on June 1st. They have yet to use any significant portion of that. They signed a couple cheap rookie deals with guys that they drafted. So they really haven't touched much of that $18.5 million. And while everyone is looking for them to sign an offensive line here between now and training camp, if they do, which I don't think they will, it's not going to be anyone who you're going to pencil in as a starter. It's just not. The guys who are out there and who are available are no better and worse than Driscoll, than Eichenberg, than Lester Cotton, than Robert Joneses of the world. That's just a fact. A safety, they are going to sign a safety just because they have to by looking at the numbers, but it's probably not going to be Justin Simmons. It's probably going to be someone they signed mid to late July, if I had to guess, for a vet minimum deal. And it's someone whose name is going to underwhelm fans of the Dolphins, I am sure. It's not going to be a big name guy. I hope personally that they sign someone to play the defensive line, but that's just my personal hope. In reality, I really doubt they will, just because they signed 6-7 guys this offseason. I don't see them signing anyone else. I think they should. I think they need to. I hope they do. I just don't see it. So I don't see them, shopping here and buying a lot of guys. And if they so they're going to have this $18.5 million roughly. Obviously, they still have to sign Chop Robinson. They still have to sign Patrick Paul. So there's that. They'll take a small dent out of that. Once they give to a long-term deal, which I'll talk about later in the show, that's going to probably open up a couple more million. So they're going to have money to spend. Would it be wise to spend a small portion of that, not big money, on improving your quarterback depth before the season starts? And I'm not talking about Trevor Siemian. I'm not talking about Logan Woodside. I'm not talking about Brian Hoyer. I'm not talking about Blaine Gabbert, who are out there and available. I'm talking about our old friend, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill started 151 games to Mike White's 7. Ryan Tannehill has a 216 career touchdown passes compared to Mike White's 8. His quarterback win-loss record, speaking of Ryan Tannehill, is 81-70, 11 games over 500. Mike White's 2-5. And I'm not sure it's going to cost a whole lot of money to sign a Ryan Tannehill these days. And again, once you cut Mike White, you get $3.5 million in salary cap savings. That's enough. I mean, I'm not saying that'd be enough to sign Ryan Tannehill, but that might be enough to sign Ryan Tannehill or slightly more. Now, I know this is probably unrealistic to happen. I get it. So don't send me your hate mail and your hate tweets. But if Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel are truly about putting the best 53 on the field, they should consider upgrading the number 2 quarterback position. And I'll say this to be perfectly clear so I don't get all the hate mail. This is not about competition for Tua. This is clearly a number 2 quarterback situation. Anyone who spins what I'm saying into that is just a troll and looking to get people worked up. I am not saying that, and anyone with an IQ over 2 can understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. There is no doubt, though, Ryan Tannehill is a significant upgrade over Mike White, and I would, when you factor in the money, because once again, Ryan Tannehill ain't getting a huge money deal here. Once you factor in how much you save, once you cut Mike White, and then you factor in White versus Tannehill and who they are as players at this stage in their career, to me, it's a no-brainer. And if you're truly about winning, and you're truly about ending this 24-year drought of not having a playoff win, where to the point Mike McDaniel's holding meetings with his coaching staffs, 724, 824, 324, 124, on the minute of 24, then sometimes you gotta look at everything, including quarterback depth. It's the most important position on the team, and it's something that should be looked at. That's all I'm saying. And there's one guy out there who would improve it 100% for sure. I'm sure Mike White's a nice person. This is not personal in any way. It's just looking at the money, looking at his numbers, and looking at if we can get someone out there for equal money who has better numbers and can, God forbid he has to play. God forbid. Nobody wants to even see the number 2 quarterback play. God forbid. Can put us in a situation where we could possibly have more success. That's all I'm saying. And we'll see what Miami does. I doubt they'll do anything, honestly, though. But just wanted to sort of get that off my chest. Alternate jerseys, throwbacks. Now, I'm done whining about the throwback logo debate. Anyone who's listened to this podcast for an extended period of time knows where I stand. And I am done talking about it. This franchise has one logo. It's the original logo. It's called now the throwback logo. That's the logo. Everything they've done since it has bastardized the logo. I only recognize the throwback logo. I don't consider what they wear now to be serious. They just wear it because that's what the owner wants. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about alternate uniforms. Because the NFL has this rule, you can wear alternate uniforms now for a couple games this season. Miami in recent years has decided that's the week we're going to wear the throwback uniforms with the throwback logo, and and that's what they do, and that's fine. I like those weeks. I'd rather see that logo on the field than the one that we wear every other week. But you've seen what some other teams are doing. The Vikings announced this super cool new look within the past week or so. It's this winter warrior look. It's all white helmet with little purple outline, white tops, white pants. It looks super cool, modern. It's got the fan base, energized. They really like that look. You got the Lions earlier this offseason showed a third new alternate uniform that's very sleek, very modern, very forward thinking. It's got their fan base enthused. The Giants, their third uniform that they showed this offseason is a really old school look. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's really old school look. I think it's kind of ugly, but that's just my opinion. Their fan base seems to like it. That's really all that matters, what your fan base likes. There's your paying customers. So they're doing something. You got the Denver Broncos. They put out a new look. I'm not a huge fan of it, but again, their fan base seems to like it, so that's really all that matters. All these fan bases are trying something new. And I think we got to the point where with the Miami Dolphins here, they're kind of stuck in a rut. In that it's like, here's our logo, here's what we wear 15 weeks of the year, and for those other 2 weeks, we wear the throwbacks. And it's like, okay, cool. We ever going to change? Missionary position every night gets boring after a while, if you know what I mean, man. I get it. As long as Stephen Ross is, owns the team, the throwbacks aren't coming back full time, even though the vast majority of the fan base wants it. But instead of the throwbacks twice a year, mix it up. Mix it up. Let's say, no throwbacks this year. Let's come out with a new alternate third look. I know in years past they did the orange on orange creamsicle look. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Okay, they tried something. I mean, we cannot be that creatively bankrupt as an organization to not even try and stay up with the times. Try something. I'm not saying it's going to be great. Try something. You've already alienated the fans who want the throwback logo full time. So I know you're sort of throwing them a bone by wearing them twice a year. That's great. But for 1 year, it's obviously not going to be this year. It'd have to be 2025, 2026. Skip the throwbacks then and come up with a new alternate third uniform, that's more forward thinking. Maybe an all black look. Helmet's black, shirt's black, pants are black. Something. I don't know. I'm not an art major, but there's got to be something to try and mix it up, because it just seems like that the Dolphins are kind of in this rut where we're not, it's like here's our logo, here's our uniform. So twice a year we're going to wear the throwbacks, and we'll probably wear the throwbacks. At least one time is going to be late in the year, so it's around holiday shopping season, so we can get the fans. They get all excited, yay, throwbacks, go buy a bunch for Christmas shopping. Like, it's the same routine. You look at when the Dolphins wear the throwback uniforms. From Black Friday on, they at least wear it once. Sometimes that's when they wear it twice, though we sometimes wear it once in October, once post Black Friday weekend. It's like, been there, done that. Let's change it up. Let's get cutting edge here. And try something new, since we're not going back to the throwbacks full time. We've already had that debate, and people like me have lost, even though I'm in the right. On the people who want it, we waved the white flag. It's not happening. We get it. As long as Mr. Ross owns his team, it's not happening. But let's try to move forward here. Let's move the organization forward into this century and be like some of these other teams. So we're at least trying something new twice a year or so to wear these alternate uniforms. All right, before we get to the final topic of today's show, the Jaylen Waddle Youth Football Camp is the place to be this summer. Join Miami Dolphins star on June 22nd in Fort Lauderdale for skill building, fun, and memories that will last a lifetime. Visit JaylenWaddleCamp.com and register while spots are still available. Each camper will receive a limited edition t-shirt, a souvenir autograph, and a team photo with Jaylen. Check out JaylenWaddleCamp.com to learn more. That's JaylenWaddleCamp.com. See you on the field, open to boys and girls, grades 1 through 8. All right, final topic on today's show. I'm going to talk Tua for a second, and I want to talk about one of the reporters in particular discussing this whole Tua contract situation, and that is Jeff Darlington of ESPN. And I want to throw him some flowers and give him credit, because he is the only person who is reporting the story somewhat accurately. And last week on ESPN NFL Live, I forget which day, Jeff Darlington hit the nail on the head. And I know most people watching probably didn't pick up on it. I know most people listening probably didn't pick up on it. Or if they did, they just glossed over it just to get into the constant yelling back and forth when it comes to Tua. But Jeff Darlington, he said the quiet part out loud. And which often gets, as I said, lost here when these talking heads are on TV, or you see the fans just arguing on Twitter. And it's just Jeff Darlington said, it's not if they give Tua a long-term deal, it's when. That the Miami Dolphins organization has already made up their mind that Tua is their guy moving forward. There's no debate. There's no debate if they're going to pay him. It's just how much they're going to pay him. So anytime you see a talking head on the NFL Network, although most of those people have been fired, or on ESPN, on other shows, or on Fox Sports, or on NBC Sports, or CBS Sports, or Sirius XM NFL Radio, and you see the debate. Well, Miami they might let him play out his fifth-year option, then kick the can down the road to next year. No, that's not happening. Jeff Darlington said the quiet part out loud. Again, some choose to ignore it. Some choose to be willfully ignorant. Miami is Tua. Tua is Miami. This is happening. And I don't care if you listening to me right now who hear my voice love Tua or hate Tua. The reality is Miami's going to give him a long-term contract, and he will be here the next however many years, probably 5 years or so. Now, is that the right move? I have no earthly idea. Nobody does. There is a lot of good that Tua Tagovailoa brings to the table. There are also some red flags to his game that he brings to the table. This is not a black and white issue. There is an element of risk here by the Miami Dolphins in hitching their wagon to Tua Tagovailoa. That's just reality. That's just being fair. But I see everyone, from fans on social media to people on TV, people on podcasts, debating if the Miami Dolphins are really going to pay Tua or if they are just going to let this play out and let this go to next offseason. That's not happening, folks. That's not happening. I don't care what side of the fence you fall on, whether you like this kid or don't like this kid. That's not happening. And if he stays healthy and the team wins, and if they advance further than they've recently been in the playoffs, that's great. The people in Miami, Mike McDaniel, Chris Grier and such, they're going to be here for a very long time, and they're going to be proven right. If Tua struggles or if he gets hurt again, and the team doesn't advance any further than they've been recently, then Mike McDaniel, Chris Grier, and Tua will be all gone within the next handful of years. It's going to happen quick. So I know until Tua gets a new deal, this debate is not going to die. It's going to be a debate that just is going to be endless. But I'm not going to argue with stupid people or the willfully ignorant people on this topic. And I warn you, you shouldn't either. Don't get sucked into those mindless, endless debates on stuff that's just not going to happen. The reality is Tua is going to get a long-term deal from the Dolphins. I have no idea how much. It's going to start with it's not even about the average per season, although I know that's all people look at. It's about the guaranteed money. Is it going to be 173, 176, 180? I don't know. It's going to be somewhere probably between 170 and 180. And it probably won't be any lower than Jared Goff. So it's probably between 173 and 180. That's just reality. So however many years, if it comes out to, it doesn't even matter. But that's what he's looking at. And, just don't get suckered into the debate about what may or may not happen. They might not pay him. No, they're going to pay him, folks. They're going to pay him. And Jeff Darlington, who's as tied into the Dolphins as any reporter out there nationally or locally, he's saying it. And it's, I just see a lot of people just choosing to ignore it. And it's like, you can't scream fake news. You can't scream all these reporters are making stuff up when you got people literally telling you what's going to happen and you just don't want to believe them. So that's the reality of the situation. It's kind of the stance. It's what I've been it's what we have been saying on this podcast for months, probably since the season ended. It's what the people who know, the real people who know what they've been reporting. And Jeff, he's been on top of this, out front of this. Adam Schefter has as well. There's a lot of good people who have been reporting the facts of what is going to happen, and that's what's going to happen. Now, again, you don't have to agree with what's going to happen. You might think this is the biggest mistake that the Dolphins are making in their rich history, and you are fine to have that opinion. But what you can't do is say, oh, it's not happening, because that's just putting your head in the sand and just being willfully ignorant to this topic. Okay, that's all for today's show. Thank you all for listening. Again, we're going to have a few shows this week. I know Marissa has at least 1 or 2 interviews. Tom's got an interview. Myself and Ian are going to have a show, and who the heck knows what else will happen with some other shows if news breaks or if we have any news items out there. Or if we just get bored and want to pop on and have a show, we will have a show. Be sure to check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, for all latest Miami Dolphins news and information. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Dolphins Talk. Check us out there. Again, this show today has been brought to you by Caneswear. They are located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. Also, if you're not in South Florida, go to caneswear.com to shop their entire inventory, and they also ship internationally as well. So I know we have many listeners in the UK, Germany, Spain, all over the world. They will ship to you internationally as well. So check out caneswear.com. Everyone, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again after a while. Folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.